The champagne glass slipped from Amara's fingers, shattering against the marble floor of the grand ballroom. Silence fell as heads turned. Through the sea of designer gowns and tuxedos, Amara locked eyes with her stepmother Helene, whose painted red lips curved into a smile. "Clean it up," Helene mouthed silently across the room. Amara's hands trembled as she bent down, picking up shards of crystal in her server's uniform. 3 years ago, this house belonged to her father. Tonight, she carried trays in it. A man in an expensive suit stepped forward, his voice cutting through the tension. "Let me help you with that." "No need, sir," Amara said, forcing a smile. "It's my job." As she gathered the broken glass, whispers filled the room. No one recognized her as Adebayo Okoye's daughter. The heiress who once graced magazine covers alongside her shipping magnate father was now invisible, erased from her own legacy, serving drinks at her stepsister's engagement party. Helene clinked her glass, drawing attention to the center of the room. "Before we continue celebrating Soraya's engagement, I have an announcement regarding our family's financial situation." Amara froze. "As some of you know, we've faced challenges since my husband's passing," Helene continued. "What you don't know is that we don't owe the bank. We owe a king. If you're enjoying this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our new uploads. Now let's continue with this tale of betrayal and unexpected power." 3 years earlier, Amara had stood beside her father's hospital bed, clutching his hand as machines beeped around them. "Baba, please," she whispered. "You can't leave me." At 56, Adebayo Okoye was too young, too strong to be defeated by a sudden heart attack. Just yesterday, they'd been discussing her final year at business school, planning her gradual transition into running Okoye Maritime Group. "Miss Okoye," the doctor had said gently, "I'm sorry, but your father is gone." Helene had appeared then, her grief picture perfect, designer sunglasses, hiding eyes that remained suspiciously dry. Within days, everything changed. "This is impossible," Amara said, staring at the document the family lawyer had placed before her. "My father would never cut me out of his will." "I'm sorry, Miss Okoye," the lawyer said, not meeting her eyes. But this amendment was signed 3 weeks before your father's passing. It's legally binding." Beside her, Helene dabbed at her eyes with a silk handkerchief. "Your father worried about your readiness to handle such responsibility. He wanted you to prove yourself first." "That's a lie," Amara hissed. "He was grooming me to take over. We had a plan." "Plans change," Helene said softly. "As do people. You'll remain in the family home, of course." What Helene didn't say was that remaining in the family home meant working for her room and board. Within weeks, Amara's university sponsorship was cut. Her access to family accounts, frozen. Her position on the company board, eliminated. "Until debts are resolved," Helene explained with cold efficiency. "We all must make sacrifices." Amara soon discovered the estate wasn't bankrupt. It was leveraged. Helene had secretly mortgaged shipping assets to fund Soraya's influencer lifestyle, her designer wardrobe, her constant travels. 18 months passed like this. Amara, once heir to a shipping empire, became the help. She cooked, cleaned, and served at Helene's endless social gatherings, biding her time, watching, learning. The household staff who had known her since childhood looked away in shame when she joined their ranks. Then came the night everything changed again. Amara was folding laundry when Helene entered her small bedroom without knocking. "We need to talk about your future," Helene said, settling onto Amara's bed like she owned it. Which technically she did. "My future?" Amara asked, continuing to fold. "I thought my future was serving drinks to your friends until I'm gray." Helene's smile tightened. "Always so dramatic. The truth is, your father left more than a company in disarray. He left substantial debts to certain unconventional lenders." "What are you talking about? Okoye Maritime was profitable. I saw the books myself." "The official books, yes," Helene said, examining her manicure. "There were other ventures, riskier ones." Amara set down the shirt she was folding. "I don't believe you. Believe what you want. The fact remains that these lenders want repayment. They're not asking for land or money." "Then what do they want?" "A marriage alliance." Amara laughed, the sound hollow even to her own ears. "You're selling me now, like cattle?" "I'm offering you an opportunity," Helene corrected. "The man in question is quite powerful, Jun Ha Min." The name hung in the air between them. Even Amara had heard whispers of the Korean crime syndicate, head known as the Silent Emperor. Rumors said he controlled everything that moved through Denver's harbor district. "He's a criminal," Amara said flatly. "He's a businessman with diverse interests," Helene countered, "and he's specifically asked for you." "Why would he want me? You've made sure I have nothing." Something flickered in Helene's eyes. "Perhaps he sees value where I don't. You'll meet him tomorrow. Wear something presentable." After Helene left, Amara pulled out her laptop. The internet connection was slow. Helene had made sure her access was limited, but eventually she found what she needed. Articles about Jun Ha-min were scarce, but what existed painted a clear picture. Survivor of an internal coup that had left him paralyzed from the waist down, rumored to have executed the traitors personally despite his condition. Known for speaking rarely, but acting decisively. And now, apparently, looking for a wife. The next evening, a sleek black car arrived at the estate. The driver, a stone-faced man in a dark suit, opened the door for Amara without speaking. "Where are we going?" she asked as they pulled away. "Harbor District," he replied, offering nothing more. They drove to a modern high-rise overlooking the water. The driver escorted her to a private elevator that required a keycard. When the doors opened, Amara found herself in a minimalist penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows framing the harbor lights. And there he was. Jun Ha-min sat in a custom wheelchair facing the view, his back to her. He didn't turn immediately, letting the silence stretch until Amara wondered if she should speak first. "Miss Okoye?" he said finally, his voice deeper than she'd expected. "You look at doors when you enter a room. That means you plan exits." He turned his wheelchair smoothly, revealing a face younger than she'd imagined, perhaps early 30s. With sharp cheekbones and eyes that seemed to absorb everything, his suit was impeccably tailored to accommodate his seated position. "When you've lost your freedom once," Amara replied, "you become conscious of escape routes." His mouth curved slightly, not quite a smile. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a chair positioned across from him. She did, careful to maintain eye contact. She wouldn't show fear, even as her heart hammered against her ribs. "Your stepmother claims you understand business," he said. "Is that true?" "I was halfway through my MBA when my father died, and Aline decided education was a luxury I didn't deserve." Interesting choice of words. Not "when my father cut me off," but "when Helene decided." "You don't believe the will was legitimate." Amara stayed silent, realizing she'd revealed too much already. Junha reached for a tablet on the table beside him. "Helene Velez married your father 6 months before his death. 4 weeks before he died, his will changed. 2 weeks after his funeral, Okoye Maritime began restructuring its shipping routes." He set the tablet down. "What does that sequence suggest to you?" "That my father's death was convenient for several parties, including me." The blunt admission stunned her. "Are you confessing to having my father killed?" For the first time, emotion crossed his face, a flash of something like offense. "I don't kill business partners, especially not valuable ones." "Then why am I here? Why this marriage proposal that feels more like a hostage negotiation?" He studied her for a long moment. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone broken by 3 years of systematic erasure." He moved his wheelchair closer to the table between them. "Your stepmother didn't tell you the real reason for this arrangement, did she?" "She said my father owed you money." "Your father owed me nothing." Junha slid a document across the table. "This is the real contract." Amara took it hesitantly. As she read, her breath caught. This wasn't a marriage contract, at least not primarily. It was an access agreement to Okoye Maritime's shipping logs, route histories, and cargo manifests from the past 5 years. "I don't understand," she said. "Helene controls these now. Why involve me?" "Because the cargo routes used in my sister's assassination were hidden inside your father's fleet." The words fell like stones. "Assassination?" 3 years ago, someone within my organization orchestrated a coup. A bullet meant for me struck my sister instead. I survived. She did not. His voice remained even, but his knuckles whitened against the armrest of his wheelchair. "The weapons used came through channels only accessible with Okoye Maritime clearance codes." Amara felt the floor tilt beneath her. "Are you saying my father was involved in your sister's murder?" "I'm saying your father's company was used, with or without his knowledge. 3 weeks later, he died of a supposed heart attack. 1 month after that, Helene Velez began rerouting specific shipping channels through companies connected to my former director, Han Seok. The implications crashed over Amara in waves. Her father, the amended will, his too convenient heart attack. "Helene," she whispered, "she's working with your enemies." "That's my theory, but I need proof. I need those shipping logs." "And you need me to access them." Amara looked up from the document. "But why marriage? Why not just hire me?" "Because Helene watches you." "Because a consultant can be fired, but a wife." He let the sentence hang. "Has legal rights to your assets," Amara finished, "including access to information." "Yes. What happens after, when you have what you need?" Junha's expression remained unreadable. "That depends on what we find." "And if I refuse?" "Then I collect my debt from Helene another way. The estate will be sold. You'll have nothing, not even a room to sleep in." Amara stared at the contract, mind racing. This wasn't just about her anymore. If what he said was true, her father might have been murdered, used and discarded, like she had been. "I have a condition," she said finally. "When this is over, regardless of what we find, I want my position at Okoye Maritime restored, not just access, control." Junha studied her for a long moment. You're either very brave or very desperate." "I'm very determined," Amara corrected. "Do we have a deal?" He extended his hand. "We have a deal." When she returned to the estate that night, Helene was waiting in the foyer, a glass of wine in hand. "Well?" she demanded. "Is it done?" "Yes," Amara said simply. "I'm getting married." Helene's smile was all teeth. "Wonderful. You always were such a practical girl." "Yes," Amara agreed. "I learned from watching you." The wedding was a private affair 3 days later. No press, no celebration. Just a judge, 2 witnesses from Junha's organization, and Helene, whose satisfaction radiated like heat. Amara wore a simple white dress, not a wedding gown. She refused to pretend this was anything but a business transaction. Junha wore a dark suit, his expression giving nothing away as they exchanged vows neither meant. From the corner of her eye, Amara saw Soraya texting rapidly, a smirk playing on her lips. "It's done," she mouthed to whoever was on the other end. After the ceremony, Junha's driver took them directly to his penthouse. Neither spoke during the ride. What was there to say? They were strangers bound by paper and circumstance, not emotion. In the elevator, Amara felt her stomach tighten. Wedding night. The thought had been pushed aside in the rush of revelations and plans, but now it loomed large and unavoidable. What would he expect? What would she be willing to give? The penthouse was dark when they entered, city lights casting long shadows across the minimalist space. "Your room is prepared," Junha said, seeing moving his wheelchair toward a different hallway than she expected. "My room," she repeated. He stopped, turning to face her. "Did you think we would share quarters?" The question hung between them, heavy with unspoken assumptions. "I thought—" Amara hesitated. "The contract contains no provisions about physical relations." His voice was matter-of-fact. "Marriage is the legal structure we needed, nothing more." Relief washed through her, followed immediately by something like offense. Was she so unappealing that he hadn't even considered? Junha seemed to read her thoughts. "It's not about desirability, Amara. It's about consent. I do not touch unwilling queens." The word queens caught her off guard. Before she could respond, he continued, "Follow me." "There's something you need to see." He led her to a home office with multiple screens mounted on the walls. After locking the door, he handed her a data drive. "What's this?" she asked. "The beginning of your revenge." Amara plugged the drive into a computer. Documents filled the screen. Metadata showing her father's will had been edited using Helene's personal laptop, offshore transfers to accounts linked to someone named Director Han. Records of meetings between Helene and this Han 2 weeks before her father's death. "How did you get this?" she whispered. "I've been watching Helene Velez for 3 years, Junha replied. "Just as I've been watching you." "Me?" "I needed to know if you were complicit, if you'd been pushed aside because you threatened their arrangement, or if you were part of it." Amara's head snapped up. "You thought I helped kill my own father?" "I considered all possibilities." His voice softened slightly. "But I quickly eliminated that one. Your grief was genuine. Your confusion, real. Your resilience, impressive." She turned back to the screen, processing what she was seeing. This proves Helene altered the will, maybe even that she was involved with these people. But it doesn't prove she had anything to do with my father's death. No, that's what we need the shipping records for, to connect all the pieces. Amara scrolled through more documents, questions mounting. Finally, she voiced the one burning brightest. Did my father know? About the weapons shipments? About any of it? Junha's eyes met hers steadily. That is what we're going to find out. If you're still with us, you're witnessing the unveiling of an incredible conspiracy. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below about what you think will happen next. Your support helps us bring more stories like this to life. Now, back to our tale. Over the next several weeks, Amara lived a double life. To the outside world, she was Junha Min's quiet, submissive wife, rarely seen in public. To Helene and Soraya, she was a problem neatly solved, removed from the estate and no longer their concern. But behind closed doors, she was becoming something else entirely. Each day, Junha taught her the structure of his syndicate, the financial flows, the pressure points of power. She studied shipping manifests, identifying patterns and anomalies in Okoye Maritime's operations since her father's death. There, she said one night, we're pointing to a screen. These containers from Malaysia. They were diverted from their original destination. Junha moved his wheelchair beside her, close enough that she could smell his subtle cologne. How can you tell? The weight distributions are wrong for the stated cargo, and the customs documentation was processed by the same officer who handled 3 other suspicious shipments. She highlighted several entries, all signed off by someone with the initials HS. Han Seok, Junha confirmed, something like pride in his voice. You have a good eye. I had a good teacher, she replied, then hesitated. My father. They worked late most nights, their initial wariness gradually giving way to a rhythm of collaboration. Junha was brilliant, analytical, seeing connections where others saw only chaos. Amara brought institutional knowledge of shipping operations and a personal stake that drove her to catch details others might miss. Here, she said one evening, nearly a month into their marriage. I found something strange. Junha wheeled closer, their shoulders almost touching as he leaned to see her screen. This shell company, she continued, Phoenix Maritime Consulting. It appears in transaction records 2 days before my father's death, then again 3 days after, but it doesn't exist in any corporate registry I can access. Junha's posture stiffened. Phoenix, Han's call sign during military service. And look at the authorization code. Amara highlighted a sequence. It uses Okoye Maritime's format, but this specific pattern, I've never seen it before. Junha was silent for a long moment. Because it's a forgery. A good one, but not perfect. He turned to her, something new in his expression. You found the connection I've been looking for 3 years. The praise warmed her unexpectedly. We still don't know if my father was involved. No, but we're closer. A week later, Helene called with news Amara had been anticipating. Soraya's engagement party. The official announcement of her betrothal to Dae-jung, a handsome Korean businessman who Amara now knew worked directly for Director Han. You will attend, of course, Helene said, her tone making it clear this wasn't a request. Both of you. It would look suspicious otherwise. Of course, stepmother, Amara replied, forcing sweetness into her voice. We wouldn't miss it. After hanging up, she found Junha in the living room, staring out at the harbor lights. It's happening, she said. The engagement announcement. They're bringing both sides together publicly. Yes. His voice was distant. Han is getting careless, confident. Or desperate. Amara sat on the couch near his wheelchair. We have most of the evidence we need. The shipping records, the forged authorizations, the money trail. What are we missing? Junha turned to face her. Proof your father was murdered. The words hung between them. They both knew what was likely true, but suspicion wasn't evidence. The medical examiner ruled it a heart attack, Amara said quietly. Natural causes? Certain poisons can induce cardiac stress that mimics heart failure, Junha replied, especially in someone with a pre-existing condition. My father had mild hypertension, Amara admitted. He took medication for it. Medication that could be tampered with? Amara felt a chill run through her. You think Helene poisoned him? Through his medication? I think we need to check the pharmaceutical logs for the estate during those weeks. Junha's voice softened. if you're prepared for what we might find. Amara met his gaze steadily. I've been preparing for 3 years. The night of Soraya's engagement party arrived. Amara chose her outfit carefully, a deep blue gown that reminded her of one her father had bought for her 21st birthday. Not ostentatious, but elegant, the dress of someone who belonged. Junha looked striking in his tailored suit, the custom wheelchair almost throne-like beneath him. When she emerged from her room, something flickered in his eyes. You look, he began, then stopped. Like an heiress again? She supplied with a small smile. Like yourself, he corrected. Not who they tried to make you. The compliment settled warmly in her chest. Ready to crash a party? I never crash, he replied, the hint of a smile playing at his lips. I arrive. The estate was transformed for the occasion, draped in flowers and lights that must have cost a fortune. Her fortune, technically. Guests parted as they entered, whispers following in their wake. The mysterious Junha Min rarely attended social functions, and never without purpose. Helene intercepted them immediately, her smile tight. Amara, darling. How nice to see you. Her eyes flicked to Junha. Mr. Min, we're honored. The honor is mine, he replied smoothly. Congratulations on your daughter's engagement. Yes, well, Soraya has always had excellent taste. Helene's gaze returned to Amara, sharpening. Unlike some. Before Amara could respond, a tall Korean man approached, hand extended toward Junha. Emperor, I didn't expect to see you here. Junha didn't take the offered hand. Director Han, I wouldn't miss the joining of our interests. The tension between them was palpable. Amara studied Han carefully. This was the man who had orchestrated the attack that killed Junha's sister and left him paralyzed. The man who might have been involved in her father's death. Your wife is lovely, Han said, turning to Amara with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. A surprising choice. I value substance over appearance, Junha replied coldly. Something you never understood. Han's smile tightened. We should talk, Emperor, and about old business. Later, Junha said dismissively. This is a celebration, after all. As Han walked away, Amara felt Junha's hand brush against hers, their first deliberate contact since the wedding. She glanced down, surprised. Stay close, he murmured. The game begins now. The next hour passed in a blur of calculated conversations and strategic movements. They separated briefly, Amara circulating to gather information, while Junha engaged key business associates. She overheard fragments of discussions about shipping contracts, harbor security, upcoming cargo inspections. At precisely 9 p.m., Helene clinked her glass for attention. The room quieted as she took center stage, Soraya and her fiancé Dae-young beside her. Friends, family, esteemed colleagues, Helene began, her voice carrying across the ballroom. Tonight we celebrate not just an engagement, but a partnership between two powerful families with shared vision and values. Amara moved quietly toward the back of the room, where a security panel controlled the estate's electronics. 3 years of servitude had given her intimate knowledge of the house's systems. She entered the code quickly, making a small adjustment to the presentation sequence. Soraya and Dae-jung represent the future, Helene continued, gesturing toward the screens around the room. A future of prosperity and strength. If you'll direct your attention to the displays, we've prepared a special announcement. The screens flickered to life. But instead of the romantic montage Helene had planned, they displayed financial records, shipping manifests, bank transfers, proof of illegal weapons shipments through Okoye maritime routes, forged signatures linking to Director Han, evidence that Helene had met with Han 2 weeks before Adebayo Okoye's death. Gasps filled the room. Helene froze mid-sentence, her glass slipping from her fingers, much as Amara's had at the beginning of the evening. What is this? She hissed, turning to the technician who scrambled frantically at his equipment. The truth, Amara said, her voice carrying in the stunned silence. About what happened to my father. About what you did to his company. About who you really are, Helene. Soraya stared at the screens, her perfect composure cracking as she recognized her own name in some of the documents. Mother, what's going on? Helene's face contorted with rage. Shut it off, now! Suddenly, the lights went out. The room plunged into darkness. A gunshot cracked through the chaos. Women screamed, men shouted. In the confusion, Amara felt strong hands grab her arm, pulling her toward an exit. Not that way, she said firmly, recognizing one of Junha's security team. The West Corridor, We anticipated this. Earlier that day, she had redirected the estate's security forces, positioning Junha's most trusted men at key locations. When they reached the designated meeting point, Junha was already there, calm amid the storm. "Director Han?" he asked his head of security. "Contained," the man replied, attempting to access the East Wing as expected. "And our evidence?" "Secure. Police have been anonymously notified of potential firearms on the premises." In the distance, sirens wailed. Junha turned to Amara, his expression softening. "Are you all right?" "Yes," she said, surprised to realize it was true. "Better than all right." Before they could say more, shouts echoed from a nearby hallway. Director Han, flanked by 2 guards, burst into the room. When he saw Junha, his face contorted with rage. "You set me up!" he snarled, raising a gun. "You crippled dog." "No," Junha replied calmly. "You exposed yourself, just as you did 3 years ago." Han's finger tightened on the trigger, but before he could fire, Junha's security team moved with practiced precision. In seconds, Han was disarmed and restrained, his guards similarly subdued. Han struggled against his captors, eyes wild. "You think this changes anything? You'll always be half a man. You should have died with your sister." For the first time since Amara had known him, Junha's composure cracked. His hand trembled visibly on the armrest of his wheelchair, a tremor of grief or rage or both. Without thinking, Amara moved to his side, placing her hand over his. "He's wrong," she said quietly. "You survived. That is not weakness." Junha looked up at her, something vulnerable and raw in his expression, before he masked it again. But his hand turned beneath hers, their fingers intertwining briefly before police officers flooded the room. The aftermath unfolded with swift precision. Director Han was arrested for the attempted shooting, which gave authorities cause to investigate the financial records now circulating. Helene, caught trying to delete files from her office computer, was taken in for questioning. Within hours, the carefully constructed facade of respectability surrounding Helene Velez began to crumble. The evidence Amara and Junha had compiled was overwhelming: financial fraud, corporate espionage, conspiracy. But the most damning revelation came 3 days later, when pharmaceutical logs from the estate confirmed what they had suspected. Adebayo Okoye's heart medication had been replaced with a compound containing a specific toxin, one that induced cardiac stress while leaving minimal traces. Murder, carefully disguised as natural causes. 1 week after the engagement party disaster, Amara stood in the Okoye Maritime Group's main boardroom. The polished table where her father once sat stretched before her, empty chairs awaiting the board members who would arrive shortly. She ran her fingers along the smooth wood, remembering how she used to watch board meetings from a small side door when she was a child, was fascinated by the power and purpose that filled the room. "Nervous?" Junha asked from the doorway, his wheelchair moving silently across the carpet. "No," Amara replied, surprised to realize it was true. "This is where I belong, where I was always meant to be." "Yes," he agreed, coming to a stop beside her. Not behind, not in front. Beside. It is. The legal battle had been swift and decisive. With Helene facing criminal charges and the amended will proven fraudulent, control of Okoye Maritime had reverted to Amara. The estate, too, was legally hers again, though she had no desire to return there. Too many shadows, too many ghosts. "The board members are arriving," Junha said. "Are you ready?" Amara nodded, straightening her shoulders. From her briefcase, she removed a pair of white gloves, the same ones she'd been forced to wear while serving at Helene's parties. She placed them deliberately on the boardroom table. "What are those for?" Junha asked. "Reminder," Amara said simply, "of where I've been, of what I've overcome." As voices approached the boardroom, Junha surprised her by taking her hand. "Your father would be proud," he said quietly. Amara felt tears prick at her eyes, but blinked them back. "Thank you, for helping me find the truth, for seeing me when everyone else looked away." "We saw each other," he corrected gently. "That's the difference." The board members filed in, their curious gazes taking in Amara at the head of the table, Junha beside her. Their expressions ranged from skepticism to calculation to cautious respect. Amara waited until they were all seated, then stood. "Gentlemen, ladies, thank you for coming. Today marks a new chapter for Okoye Maritime Group, a return to integrity, transparency, and growth. One of the older board members leaned forward. Miss Okoye. Mrs. Min, she corrected smoothly. Mrs. Min, he amended. While we appreciate your enthusiasm, many of us have concerns about your experience and qualifications to lead this company. Amara smiled. It wasn't a gentle smile. 3 years ago, I was erased from my father's legacy through fraud and manipulation. Since then, I've learned more about survival and strategy than business school could ever teach me. She gestured to the screens on the wall, which displayed Okoye Maritime's current financial status. I've also identified 7 major inefficiencies in our current operations, our 3 potential cases of embezzlement among senior staff, and a pathway to increase our market share by 22% within 18 months. The room fell silent. Now, Amara continued, we can spend the next hour questioning my qualifications, or we can begin implementing the changes this company desperately needs. Which would you prefer? The same board member cleared his throat, a newfound respect in his eyes. I believe we'd all like to hear your implementation strategy, Mrs. Min. Excellent choice. Amara glanced at Junha, who watched her with quiet pride. Let's begin. Later that evening, they stood together on the penthouse balcony overlooking the harbor. Ships moved through the water below, their lights like stars against the darkness. I never asked, Amara said, breaking the comfortable silence between them. What happens now, with us? Junha turned his wheelchair to face her. What would you like to happen? That's not an answer. Perhaps not. He hesitated, which was unusual for him. When we married, it was a transaction, a means to an end for both of us. And now? Amara asked softly. Now I find myself reluctant for it to end. The admission hung between them, fragile and unexpected. I thought you didn't want, Amara began, then stopped, unsure how to continue. I said I wouldn't touch an unwilling queen, Junha corrected gently. I never said I didn't want to. Amara felt warmth spread through her chest. Slowly, deliberately, she moved closer to his wheelchair. And if the queen is willing? His eyes darkened. Then everything changes. She leaned down, her hand cupping his cheek. Good, she whispered against his lips. Because I'm tired of transactions. I want something real. Their kiss was gentle at first, then deepening with shared hunger and relief. When they finally pulled apart, Junha's eyes held a warmth she'd glimpsed only in rare moments before. They buried me in debt, Amara said softly, but I grew roots in empire. They thought they broke me, Junha replied, but they only taught me a different kind of strength. Together, they turned back to the harbor view, their unlikely empire spread before them, not built on cruelty or revenge, but on recognition of each other's value when the world had tried to diminish them both. We don't erase our enemies, Amara said. We outgrow them. Junha took her hand, their fingers intertwining. And we build something better in their place. If you enjoyed this story of resilience, revenge, and unexpected alliance, please hit that subscribe button and share with friends who appreciate a good tale of justice served. Leave a comment below telling us what you thought. Your feedback helps us create more content you'll love. Until next time, remember, sometimes being underestimated is your greatest advantage.